Okay, next up we're going to take a couple more examples from homework number 6, part A, and we're gonna go through the major terms and identifying everything first, same as we did before. But for these ones, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to check for validity using looking at the form in the figure and distribution to see if there are any formal fallacies committed. And that'll tell us what is valid or invalid. This is just to shorten things up. You can look at the first two videos that goes through how to do the Venn diagrams. And on these ones, we could do the Venn diagrams. If it's invalid, we could look for the fallacies. We're just going to do a shortcut, look at the fallacies first. But again, if you have any questions on the Venn diagrams, just let me know. The answers are all posted in files on Canvas. So we're going to start with example problem number 5, homework 6, part A. Some small dogs are yappy animals. All dachshunds are small dogs. Thus, some dachshunds are yappy animals. So again, this is already in standard form, but we're just going to double check to be sure. So let's go ahead, I got my markers. Let's go ahead and identify each of the terms. So let's look at the conclusion first. Minor term is going to be in the subject place. Major term is going to be in the predicate place of the conclusion. So the major term is what's in the predicate place. That's going to be yappy animals. Let's go ahead and abbreviate that with a Y. Then we can double check the major term should be in the first premise, the major premise on top, and indeed it is. So that statement's in the right place. Second, we'll look at the minor term, which is in the subject place of the conclusion, and dachshunds. We'll abbreviate that as D, and we'll look where dachshunds appears also. It's in the second statement. And the second statement should be the minor premise, the one that contains the minor term, and indeed those are all in the right order. And we have a conclusion on the bottom. So we're good there. The middle term is the other term that's used in both of the premises, small dogs, and it's not used in the conclusion. That's our middle term. We'll just abbreviate that with an S. Let's fill this in again, so we have a structure that we can look at for the mood in the figure. So we have some small dogs are yappy animals, so some S are Y. All dachshunds are small dogs, so all D are S. And then some dachshunds are yappy animals, so some B are Y. And our mood, again, just identify each of these statements. Some are, that's an I statement. All are, that's an A statement. Some are, that's an I statement. So we have I, A, I. Figure, let's look at this shape down here. So let's identify the two middle terms, or the middle term in the two statements, which is S, would be here and here. And again, that forms the backslash, and that coincides with figure number 1. So we have I, A, I, 1. And then let's go ahead and, instead of doing the Venn diagrams, we'll test for validity by going through the fallacies. So this is kind of the order that I like to do them. But first we're going to be looking for existential import. And remember, existential import is if you have two universal premises and a particular conclusion. That's basically saying, so in your conclusion, you're saying that something exists when, you know, if you have both all are or no are, those are both universal statements. It's not saying that anything actually exists. It's just saying that should it exist, this is where it's at. And then you're saying it does exist in the conclusion. So existential import, you're looking for two universal premises in a particular conclusion. We have one particular premise, so that's already wiped out, so we're good there. So there's no existential import fallacy. One for one says that if you have a negative premise, you have to have a negative conclusion. If you have a negative conclusion, you have to have exactly one negative premise. So it also rules out the possibility that you have two negative premises. So when you look at this, I is affirmative, A is affirmative, I is affirmative. So looks like we're good there since we don't have any negative statements to worry about. Undistributed middle. So this is where I like to underline as I go the distributed terms. And for this, again, I just have like figures in my head. I'm a very visual person. So I always remember the distribution like this. I just kind of remember this figure in my head. So basically what that's saying is you have the two places for each of the statements, and each of the statements would be A, E, I, O. So in an A statement, the first term is going to be distributed. In an E statement, both terms are distributed. In an I statement, nothing is distributed. And then in an O statement, just the second term is distributed. So let's go ahead and underline these so we can see them clearly. First one is an I statement, nothing's distributed. Second one is an A statement, so the first term, D, in this is distributed. Third term is an I statement, or the conclusion is an I statement, nothing is distributed, so we don't underline anything. So actually out of this whole argument, the only distributed term is D in the second premise, but not in the conclusion. So let's go ahead and, these are both going to deal with distribution. So undistributed middle says that the middle term in both of its locations is undistributed. It has to be distributed in at least one of its locations in the premises in order to be valid. S is the middle term here, S is the middle term here. Neither one is distributed, so we do have a fallacy there. We could stop right there, but let's go ahead and look at illicit major and illicit minor. Illicit minor basically says that when you look at the conclusion, if either of these terms is distributed in the conclusion, it has to be distributed where it comes up in the premises. So since neither one is distributed, we don't even have to worry about these. Doesn't matter that it's distributed here. Since it's not distributed here, it doesn't even have to be distributed in the premises. So there's no violation there. But since we do have one violation there, and it commits at least one fallacy, that's all we need. This is invalid.